and welcome to our bee safe tutorial, where I'm going to show you how to make this cute little guy that you can hang in your window. Now, we've made this one using the bee from our Easy Beezy kit or download instructions, and if you remember, we gave away the download instructions for free on our website a couple of weeks ago, so hopefully you've got those. If you don't, we did do a bumble mouse last week, and the instructions for making the body of this bumble mouse is very similar to making the bee body in this one. So I'm not going to spend too long on the bee body in this tutorial today, because we've got it on our other tutorial, and also you can get it in our kit. Now, the only difference between this bee and the bee in our Easy Beezy kit is that I've changed the little wings and put in our new sparkle wings. However, if you don't have wings, you could use something like acetate, or you could even just felt some. So a bit of card with some glitter on it, anything you've got to hand really. You could also, if you've got our other bee download, this is one I played around with as well. And again, I've just substituted the regular wings for little glittery wings. And you can see on the colour scheme I've got going on here, I've gone for the NHS blue heart and the carers green and blue. But just use whatever you've got in your stash really. So to get started, we're going to start off with the little ball at the bottom, just for those of you that maybe haven't done any felting before. And I'm going to work our way through. But actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we start, I'm going to tell you the different bits of materials you're going to need. But obviously, you can substitute anything in and out. But my sort of standard acrylic glue, Gorilla Gel super glue, because I find the gel one works much better because it's not all runny. Some glitter. I'm going to use a multi-tool for this one, just purely because it's quicker. But if you don't have one, just use a single needle or hold two together. That works really well. A bradawl or an awl, and normally a tapered one is good for a felter. I've got a little crown, and somewhere, oh here, right in front of me, I've got some glittery wings. So you can see they've got the bee wings on one side, and then they've got this lovely glitter on the other. And the glitter comes through and makes them all shimmery. I've also got some gold cord to hang it with, but you know, again, hang it with can't speak, with whatever you've got to hand. And then really the other thing I'm going to need is some cookie cutters. But as I say, if you don't have cookie cutters, it doesn't matter. You could just draw a heart template, maybe cut it out of a bit of felt so you've got a shape to felt onto, and just build your heart up from there. But we'll have a look at that as we go through. And a pen or a pencil. And I think that's about it really. Oh, glittery stones. I have put some glittery stones on this, but again, it's only because it happens to be what I've got hanging around. You could felt some little dots onto it if you've got short pins, sequins, absolutely anything. You get the idea. Use your craft stash and just put whatever you fancy on it. So let's move some of this out of the way and get going. Now then, I'm going to go for this nice soft green that I've got, and I'm just going to cover a little white ball. Now you can buy these in packs. Okay, I normally buy them. My local craft shop is Coleman's at Craft Warehouse at Rushden, but obviously it's shut at the minute. But you can get things like this online. But if not, just you can just make one by rolling up a little bit of wool, just like we showed in our bumble mouse tutorial when you're making a little egg or a ball shape. So I'm going to get this little ball. And I'm just going to get a small amount of green to cover it over. I'm going to place it on the mat, and I'm just going to hold the wool over the ball. Hopefully you can see that. So as it's holding it down, because I can't wrap the whole thing at once. And then I'm just going to poke it in. Right in. So your needle is going right in, and it's pulling the green fibres right into the little ball. So you can just wrap it round again. Hold it, keep your fingers out of the way because it is so small. So all over, and just wrap it round. Hold it down close to the little ball, so as when you're poking it in, the fibres, there's not lots of air between it and the ball, because otherwise you're going to be there forever. So just pull it round, and when you're wrapping it, if you think like, oh my goodness, I've got enough wool that I could go around this about 30 times, just hold it and pull a little bit away. If you don't hold it, you're more likely just to pull absolutely everything off. So you just keep working round. You can see that's tightening in on this side, and I would keep doing that, work all over the surface until, in good old Blue Peter fashion, I end up with this. So that's just the idea of keeping poking round and round. So we have a little green ball. So I'm just going to put that to one side. Now the bee, and I have one I prepped earlier, here we go. As I say, this body shape for the bee, it's in our Easy Beasy instructions and kit, but it's also, you can see it on the Bumble Mouse tutorial when we made that the other week. So I've just gone ahead and made a yellow egg, and I've started to put some stripes around it. It's got one random pink cheek just for speed. So I've put these two quite narrow stripes around it. You can have them thick, thin, whatever you like. And the bee can be as big or as small as you want. It just depends on the size of your cookie cutter or your heart template that you're working from. So I'm just going to show you quickly one of the stripes, because the technique for this is similar to the way we're going to do the lettering on the heart, which is the more fiddly bit of this make, really. So I'm just going to get a little bit of black fibre, and I'm just going to tease it out a little bit so as it becomes a bit sort of even thickness all the way along. And then I'm just going to hold it to my bee, and I'm going to hold it down quite tight, and I'm just going to lay it out so as I've got that stripe between the yellow and the black is nice and straight, and I'm just going to poke it in. So I'm not going around the whole thing all at once, because that would be a bit difficult to hold. Just keep your fingers out of the way. So I'm just going to work my way around, and don't worry if you run out of wool, because you can just add a bit more on. But it's that idea, I think hopefully you can see it sort of shrinking in as you poke, which is what we're going to need to be doing when we do the lettering later. So I'm just going to poke it in all the way along. And don't worry if you've got sort of fuzzy edges, because it's a bee, it looks nice when it's fuzzy. So I mean, you can use, in our Easy Beasy kit, we put a little, well not a little, just a reverse needle in, so as you can give it a fuzz. It's the same as the Bumblebee collection kit as well. They've all got reverse needles in them, so as you can fuzz your bee if you like as well. So just work around, and you can see here, it's getting a little bit messy. I've got a bit of a chunk, so I can pull a little bit away, but hold on to it, because otherwise everything will come off. So just tease some of those fibres away, and then stretch the remaining ones round and poke them in out of the way. Okay, if your stripe like mine is uneven here, you can just patch it up with another little bit of wool, like so. Just roll it again between your fingers, and then it's these little ends, these loose ends, that are going to like just fade away into the work that you've got, and you won't see the join. So I'm just going to poke that in there, like so. I'm not going to spend too long on that. You get the idea. Okay, so I've got 3 stripes on my bee. Now, I could spend time evening that up, and you can squish it into shape a little bit. All right. Now then, so I've got stripes on my bee. So to do this face, I'll just quickly go over that. So I'm just going to take a tiny little bit of pink wool and just fold it round into sort of a little disc to make a rosy cheek. If you don't have pink, if you've got sheet felt in pink, you could cut like a little disc out. That would look quite cute. So I'm just going to position it on the base, and I'm going to poke it in. So it looks quite lumpy bumpy to start with, but as I poke, it's going to get tighter and it's going to poke in. So I'm just going to poke it in like so. Now, to make the edges neat, if you want to make it like a little disc, so really quite cartoony, you could just poke it in all over, and then just poke your needle round the edge, and that is going to tuck in the sides, okay, like so, until it's nice and neat. And you can just tap over the surface. You see past my fingers there. Tap in all over past the surface. You can spend a bit of time refining the shape just by poking around it. So anywhere that it's not circular, that's what you're going to poke in. Because if it's not circular and you just keep poking all over, you'll get the same shape, but it'll just get smaller. So where it doesn't look circular, those are the little bits I'm going to poke in. So there we go. That's not perfect, but you get the general idea. So it looks like car headlights or something, doesn't it? Now, I'm going to position his eyes, so I'm just going to poke in. Oh, I didn't say to you earlier about eyes. We've got some little glass eyes, but if you don't have little glass eyes, these are 3mm glass eyes, so they're really tiny. If you don't have them, you could just roll 2 tiny little bits of black wool and poke them down in. So I'm going to mark a hole for the eyes. I'm going to push in with my bradawl. So it goes in quite deep. Because the body is firm, the hole will close over surprisingly quickly. So I'm just going to test the eye. And if there's any resistance when you're putting the eye in, you need to make the hole bigger again. But you can see that one's okay. So I'm just going to make a hole on the other side. And by the time I've done this, excuse me, by the time I've done this, the hole on the other side will have closed over again. Whoops. I'm going to pop out. So, happy with that? So I'm just going to pull. I'm going to redo the hole because the super glue will stick immediately when it hits the wool. So if there's resistance, you're going to get an eye on a stalk and it's not that good a look. So I'm just going to push it in and really hold it down tight. Just like we did when we did the bumble mouse. And you'll see there that hopefully the camera will pick up it recesses it slightly, which makes it look cuter than when it's sticking out a bit. So I'm just going to do the other one. The neighbour's out for a walk. So when you dip it in the glue, don't smudge it all around the place, because that's when the glue goes everywhere and gets all over your fingers. And then just press it down for a moment. So you've got a cute little bee. Now then, he or she needs some wings. So the sparkly wings that we do come in 3 sizes, small, medium and large. And I'm going to go for the medium ones for this guy. So I'm just going to cut them out. They're quite easy to see. So I'm just going to cut these out. Because of the glittery textures on the back, they're quite rigid. These are quite nice. Rigid is maybe not the right word. They're quite firm. They're nice. They've got a nice firmness to them. So you just turn it over. Makes them a little bit more sturdy. There we go. I managed to make a bit of a mess of that. So let's try that again. So, and 2. Now you can choose to have the sparkly side up or out even, or the natural side showing on the outer edge of your bee. So it's up to you, but the if you can see on the wing, this is the printed side and this is the glittery side, but you can see the glitter through on both sides, so it doesn't really matter which way around you put them. So I'm just going to mark sort of in the middle of his back. Makes it a bit weird, where I'm going to put the wings, and that's not very central, so I'm just going to change that. So that looks about right. So just like we did for the eyes, and to mark a hole, must be said it's a bit hard to see. So just sort of in line with the eye. Watch your fingers. Really push it in nice and deep. I'm going through so it's actually come out the other side, because I want the hole to be quite big to hold the wing. So you can have the wings round this way, whoops, with the printed side showing, or you could have them with the glitter side out with the wing effect coming through. I'm going to go for glitter side out. So I'm just going to put the end of the wing in the glue, push it down in, and just squish the bee into it for a moment or two so it's really going to hold. Yeah, like so. This goes wing. And I'm going to do it obviously on the other side. So nice big deep hole. Just make sure your hand's clear of it on the other side, because you don't want to bradawl in your finger. I'm just going to check that. Yeah, so put it on the bottom of the wing, hold it down, push it down in, and hold it for a moment or two and just squish it. It changes them so much, doesn't it, from just like a stripy egg into a little buzzy bee. And then I'm going to give it a crown. So same again, you can just either dip it straight into the glue, but it's a bit messy. You can use the end of an old needle, sort of the hook end. It's quite handy to keep some of the old needles, and just put, or broken needles even, just put a dab of glue around the edge. Just put that out the way. And I'm going to stick it on her head. And again, I'm just going to press it down just to make sure it holds. Okay. So I have one slightly squiffy little bee I'm going to put to the side. Now, the main focus of this make that's different to what we've done before is making the heart. So I'm going to go for this big cookie cutter, but you could use anything. And I'm going to take the mat. You could tell, I don't know really, actually I think I'm going to leave it on. So I'm going to get some wool and I'm going to fold it over just to sort of roughly the sort of shape of my cookie cutter and feel for the thickness so it's sort of even. And then I'm just going to push it in the cookie cutter. It's a really nice thing to do with kids this because they can hold it, and it doesn't obviously have quite, no, I think. So I think I will. I'm making a mess of this now. So I'm going to put this on my mat and I'm going to fill it with blue wool. Okay. And then I'm just going to push it down in with my needles. So just try not to catch the edge of your cookie cutter because otherwise it tends to break your needles. So I'm just going to push it down. Once it stops getting fluffy, then you can maybe put your fabric back underneath it just to stop your cookie cutter from sinking in. But, you know, as you can see, things always go wrong, don't they, whenever you're doing them. So you can just pull it off again. So I'm just pulling the wool around like this, pushing it in all over. So push your needle right through. So this takes a while. So, but, and you can take it out, turn it over, work from the other side. And if it gets too thin, you just add some more wool in. Now, sometimes I find when I do that, you get like a line, almost like a sandwich. So when you put one layer on and put another layer in over the top, if the first one was too thin, just cover it over with another thin layer of wool, wrap it almost, and that'll get rid of that problem for you. So, I mean, you can see this is starting to firm up now, and you do want your heart to be quite firm for this because when we go to put the writing on it, if it's really squishy, it's going to be really difficult to put the writing on because everything's going to sort of start to undulate as you poking the needle in. So it's worth spending a bit of time on this just to get it nice and firm. So you can see mine's coming along quite nicely. It's starting to firm up, but it's got quite a lot more poking that is needed. So I'm going to take this off and I'm going to turn it over to the other side and I'm going to push it back in and I'm going to work from the other side. So if you wanted to make it thicker, you could add more wool in, obviously, but just work all over until you start and keep changing it round so you're pushing the fibres backwards and forwards until it gets really nice and firm. Okay, now you can see it's starting to take shape, but still very squishy. So good old Blue Peter fashion, I've got one that I did earlier. So to get it away from being just totally flat on the edges, you can just push down and refine it, because you do need to do a little bit of refining, I find, once it comes out of the cookie cutter. So you can just poke down around the edges just to sort of taper them down, and you can also give it a little bit of a bend to give it a little bit of a curve. Now you can see here I've got sort of ridges and lines in it from when I folded up the fabric. So, oops, wrong side. So I'm just going to get a little bit more wool. I'm going to sort of stretch it out, thinking about the size of the area I'm going to put it onto. And then again, these, like with wool, the little fuzzy edges, they just blend away into what you're making so you don't see your join. And I'm just going to poke that over the top and then poke that in. And you can let it blend around the edges. So if you do have a join, if you've added your wool in a couple of layers and you get a join down the side, just wrap it over the sides and poke it in. Okay? Now, once you've done that, the next stage really is to do the writing, which is probably the fiddliest bit of the make of this, but it's worth spending a little bit of time on it. So I'm just going to take that off because surprisingly enough, bet you can't guess what's coming, but on the other side I've already started. So you can see here I just drew on the word safe with black pen. Now I've done my line quite harshly, so as you can see it, so as the camera picks it up, but you don't have to put it on that firmly, and you can just practice on a bit of paper first, because you don't want to make your lovely heart and then find you run out of space for the word, because that might have happened to me yesterday when I was practicing. So what I have found is when you're drawing on wool, if you're going backwards and forwards, the ink tends to flick, it catches on the fibres. So I find it's much easier just to sort of dot it on It takes another minute or two, but it stops you getting black ink everywhere. So I'm going to show you how to do this S, and I thought it was quite a nice one to do because you've obviously got the curves and things. So I'm going to get a little bit of black, and I'm just going, it's very, very fine line that you want, and you'll probably find to do a little bit of practicing that you might need to sort of pull a little bit off, and if it gets a bit messy, you can just like we just did on the back of that heart, you can just get another little bit of wool, just put it over the top, poke it in, and it's just like starting again. So I'm going to pull this out and roll it between my fingers you can't see it against my top, can you? So, sorry, to make a little thread, really, okay? Like so. There we go. Like so. Now then. So, you don't want a really fine needle for this, and you'll sort of feel it as you go along. If the needle you're working with, it seems to be so heavy that it's really, your letter is becoming distorted, go use a slightly finer needle. If nothing's happening, you need to use a slightly thicker needle. So I'm going to start at the end. I'll try and work a bit closer actually. And I'm just going to poke it along and hold this and twist it around a little bit. And I'm just going to follow the line that I've drawn. Okay. So you can see what I was saying earlier, if this heart was really soft, everything would be, where I'm poking, it would be dipping in, it wouldn't be giving me a nice firm surface to work on. So I'm just going to keep turning it round, and you can refine the shape by poking in at either side. So don't be scared to poke along. If it looks squished, if it's coming up too much one way, then poke your needle the other way to refine the shape of the curve, for example, on this S. So I'm going to work around it. If the wool is separating out and getting very thick, just give it a little roll between your fingers again, and that's going to sort that out. And then you can carry on and you can poke it in. Yeah? So if I turn it around that way, you might be able to see it a bit better. So work all along your line. I find it's easier if I have drawn it. I can't really do it. If I'm just doing it freehand, it tends to go all over the place. But now I've got quite a lot of extra wool here, so I'm just going to pull it off. But I'm going to do that in a second, because can you see here? It's almost looking more like the line of the edge of a 5. It's gone a bit straight. So all you do is poke around it, manipulate it. I'm going to push this back a bit so as it gets a nicer shape, and twist it round, and then hold it down. Don't just pull it, because otherwise all your work will come away, and take it away. And then these little extra fine bits, I don't know if the camera quite picks it up there, I'm just going to turn that back on itself and poke it in. Now, lettering is a bit fiddly. Sometimes I find the letters come quite quickly. Other times I'll go like, poke it this way a bit, poke it back that way a little bit. But it's all part and parcel of it. There's no sort of, magic shortcut, unfortunately. You just need to manipulate them a little bit. So you can poke it in from different sides, and you can, if you do find that you've been poking quite a bit and the black seems quite recessed and the blue's bulging up, just tap the blue down a little bit. Okay, now the front of that S, I don't really like the way it's angling up like that. I don't think that really looks very nice, so I'm going to push it down a little bit. So I'm just going to manipulate it by pushing it from the outer edge to push it down. I'm going to poke it round. So you could spend endless amounts of time perfecting it, but as long as it looks nice and fluid as an S, I think as a shape, then we're on a winner. You can also poke a little bit of the blue back up with your needle. Be careful not to bend the needle, because it's going to ping and flick off and break. But you can poke the blue a bit back up towards the black to help with refining the shape as well. And I quite like to push it from the back, give it a little bit of a curve. It's quite pretty. So we have the component parts of our Be Safe hanger. So you've got a little bee, you've got a little ball and the heart. Now on my one I put some diamond stones on it, but I did that after I put it all together, and it does take a little while to dry because although I used adhesive stones, I find they don't stick to the wool. I think it's just because it's the fibres are too rough for it. So now to put it together, I mean, if you don't, I've got these like sort of long doll making needles, and I've just got some gold cord. Again, this is just what I happen to have. If you don't have a really long needle to go through things, you could just sew each section, sew the bottom of the bee to the top of the heart and the ball to the bottom of the heart and so on and so forth. But what I've done with this is I've just put a knot in the end of my gold cord, so hopefully this will go through. Sometimes it doesn't. The cord's a bit thick, so we give it a bit of a wiggle and just pull it right down to the end. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing with the heart, and then come up through the back, oops, and try and get it to come out the middle eventually. There we go. Pull that through. You can make it whatever length you like, and then obviously we're going to get the bee. So up through the middle of the bee, up between its wings, like so. And I'm going to do this all as one, so it creates like a hanging loop on the top. So my little hanger, whoops, everything's twisting and turning. So what I'm going to do now that I've sort of seen the heights, and depending on how much of a gap you want, so I'm just going to come straight back down again, just a couple of millimeters away from where the first cord is coming out, whoops, and then drop it. So I'm going to come back down through and come out the other end, right just beside where I came out the first time, and pull it through. So I'm going to leave enough cord. I mean, this could be thick string, it could be anything. So I'm just going to leave quite a long cord on that, and then I'm just going to do a little double stitch underneath. The world's biggest needle. Oops. So it goes a bit twirly around on itself, but I'm just going to put a stitch on it, pull the needle through the loop to create a little knot, pull it tight, and then I'm just going to pull it back up through the bee. So back up through the bee, give it a bit of a tug, and I'm just going to pull it, and what that's going to do is just pull the knot up into the body a little bit so you don't see it, and then I'm going to trim it. So trim it right close down to the body like so, whoops, like so, and when you let go, the string will just fall back down into your bee. There we go. So, all right. Now then, so spark. You could leave it like this. You could felt some little polka dots on, or you could stick some stones on. So the ones that I used are just little card making stones. Can't see them. These ones here. And I find it easier to get them to stay on. You can see where I was doing it earlier. I got some glue. So I'm just going to put some acrylic glue out. I like this one because it dries really clear, and it's rock hard as well, because some of the glues, they dry and they've got a bit of colour to them. So all I'm going to do, and I'm quite sure you know how to stick a stone on, please don't be offended. So I'm just going to put some little dots of glue on where I want my stones. It dries quite quickly, it's like tacky glue, and then just put your stone on, tap it on, and carry on all over, like so. So you're going to put your little stones on. I have pearl ones in the cupboard. You could sew little beads on, anything that you've got. It doesn't matter. So it's just a hack from whatever you've got in your stash cupboard. So glitter, I like glitter, so I'm just going to put some glitter all over it to make it twinkle when it's in the window. This is just an ultra fine iridescent glitter that I use. I use it all the time. Anybody that comes to my classes will be very familiar with this glue. glitter. So it's a bit of a rush job, but there you go, a little hanging bee. So when he's all finished and you've got all the glittery bits on him, it looks something like that. So I hope you will have a go at making one, and if you do, please upload it to our site so we see what yours looks like. We'll put a link to our Etsy shop in case there's any of the bits you need if you don't have what you need in your craft stash. But happy making and be safe. Cheerio, thanks for watching.